Today I will be taking the topic on suspension. So suspension, we already know suspension vehicle automobiles. So it's a system of tires, springs, shock absorber, and linkage. Okay, different types of linkage that connect a vehicle to its wheels and allow relative motion between the two. So it's basically a system, suspension system. It comprises of many parts. Okay, it is a system of tires. There has to be tire and a spring. There will be damper, shock absorber, linkages together form a suspension system. Okay, that's what called suspension. So main function of suspension is to support road holding. The vehicle should be holded to the road tightly. So when we driving, so it should support the road holding and ride quality. The ride quality comes under the human comfort or the smoothness of the cargo inside it. Okay, one that we transporting. So main purpose of this suspension is to road holding and the ride quality. So function of suspension system, it safeguards the passenger and goods from the road shock, right? We already know. It gives the good road holding while driving, cornering, and braking. This is a normal condition driving and cornering. We know there will be sharp corners. It could be left or right. So cornering and braking. So it has to withstand all these conditions, all these situations. So while driving, corner and braking, it gives good road holding while driving, cornering and braking, and it allows a rapid cornering without extreme body roll. You won't allow extreme body roll. The suspension won't allow extreme body roll. What is body roll? I'll be taking in the coming session. So I will explain later. Okay, this is all about simply what is a suspension. Okay, its use and function. So the basic suspension system. Okay, what all we all know what is suspension. We already mentioned there the system consists of many things. So what is the basic things inside this suspension system? The suspension system comprises springs. Of course, we will see that springs. We already watched the springs in automobiles. So of course there will be spring, shock absorber. It could be a damper, piston arrangement damper, and linkages. So linkages are the different parts that connect, interconnect between the different motion. Okay, so these are the three main part: spring, shock absorber, and linkage. A tire is also considered as a spring in suspension system, right? It also somehow enables or do some suspension effect tires. Okay, this together only can we can only call this suspension system with all these parts. Okay, we cannot avoid any of this. This together form a basic suspension system. Spring is to absorb the shock energy. There will be shock energy when it move to regular surface. The vehicle will be having a shock energy. So spring, the basic function of spring is to absorb that energy. Damper is for dissipating the absorbed energy. Damper, it could be a spring piston arrangement. So the energy, the damping effect will be happening in the automobile. So damper is used for dissipating the absorbed energy. That energy, the shock energy that absorbed during impact will be dissipated by the damper. Okay, so that's the main function of damper. So the further, the more clear we will be explained by, so you can see this is a sprung weight. Okay, what is sprung weight I will deal with later. As you can see, it's the passenger carriage, the weight from the above part. Okay, it could be engine, payload, anything. So all that part will be connected to the spring and damper. Okay, usually the damper is surrounded by spring. So the spring effect will be a combined effect of both damper and spring. So there will be a double effect. Okay, there will be some suspension effect due to damper as well as due to spring. So together they will be giving the suspension. So damper can be a piston cylinder arrangement. This the shock energy or due to the absorbed energy is all sprung weight could come down. So that energy will be dissipated by this damper arrangement. It could be anything. The fluid inside the damper damping could be that spring a piston arrangement could be anything. It could be oil or any suitable fluid for dissipation. And there is a simple spring arranged. So together this it will hold or provide the suspension for the sprung weight above for the passenger weight carriage. Then after that, it's unsprung weight. Unsprung weight, all the part below the suspension system could be the axle, wheel, tire. Okay, so they won't have an effect on this. damper or a spring system. It's all come under it. Okay. And there will be tire system. This is a simple schematic representation of a suspension system. We have a damper, spring system, sprung weight and unsprung weight. Okay. So sprung weight is the weight of the vehicle component that is supported by the spring. Right. It could be all the thing upward. The one that has an effect on the spring system is the sprung weight, or the weight that cause an effect, or the one which depends on the springs or sprung weight. It could be the body. The whole body is attached to the frame, and it is linked to the uh, suspension, right? So it could have an effect. So it will be concluded or considered as a sprung weight. So this include the body, frame, engine, transmission. All these things come under sprung weight, and also payload or the passenger. It could also comes under sprung weight. So unsprung weight is the weight of the vehicle of a component which are not supported by the spring. So the unsprung weight is the one which are not supported by the spring. That means the wheel, the brake, the axle, suspension arm. These all the things are the unsprung weight. Okay, which brakes. This all comes under unsprung weight. So this is all about what is unsprung weight and unsprung weight. The classification of suspension system is basically classified into two. So the further detail will be discussed in next video. So this is simple classification. Okay, this whole suspension system can be classified under these two categories: the dependent system and independent system. So dependent system is also called rigid axle system suspension, and another one is independent type suspension. So the dependent or rigid axle suspension, the basic category commonly used in leaf spring and coil spring, while the independent there is different types: wishbone, MacPherson, torsion bar, trailing link. Okay, so these are the other ways of classifying suspension. On the base of axle, there is front end and rear end suspension. The front end and the rear end suspension will be different because it depends on the what type of wheel drive. It could be front wheel drive, rear wheel drive. So on the back of the engine, there is a engine. We have differential engine power, engine motor. So the type of suspension that should be used in the back side varies. Okay, it basically varies on the function or the type of vehicle, the load distribution. So simply on the base of axle, there are front end suspension and rear end suspension. These are two different category. On the base of a type of spring, steel spring, or the main category of the steel spring, the subcategory will be leaf spring, coil spring, and torsion bar. Then there are rubber spring, air spring, hydroelastic spring, suspension. So these are the different other types of suspension. So let's look at a sneak peek into what is independent and rigid axis suspension system. As I already mentioned, non-independent rigid suspension has both right and left wheel attached to the same solid axle. It's a non-independent. Okay, so it won't. So it connects on the same axle means it depends on each other. Okay, so the effect on one wheel will really affect the other part. Okay, so I will show it if as you can see, this is a dependent suspension system. Suppose there is a projection or some height over here. So when this wheel move over this part, as you can see, they have a common axis, same axis. So there will be an tension or compression on this spring. On the other hand, there will be uh, there's a releasing. There will be enlargement on this part. Okay, you can see the inclination. Why? Because this is connected to the same axis, so there will be an inclination compared to other parts. So it could have an effect because it could go downward, right? Because this axis is in inclined condition. This is a dependent system. The effect on one will really depend on the other part. So that's what is mentioned. It's non-independent system. You can see, okay. So when one wheel hits a bump in the road, its upward movement causes slight tilt in the other wheel. Okay, why? Because it has the same axis. When one wheel is subject to a bump or disturbance, the opposite will also experience a change in alignment due to the dependent nature. You can experience that in the road, right? When one part goes up, another downward. So even though the other wheel is having the effect, but somehow the other the other will be having the same effect or minimal effect. There would be some effect on it. Okay, that's the uh, criteria or category, or that's the specialty of dependent suspension. But independent suspension, So on the case of independent suspension, to allow one wheel to move up and down with minimal effect. You can see won't affect the rise in one wheel won't affect the other part. If there is an pivot point down here, so it is independent. Okay, there won't be any difference between these two wheels. So even though this one part of the wheel is at a higher position, the other part will be at the same level. Okay, so that's the independent suspension. They allow one wheel to move up and down with the minimal effect to other. An independent suspension system allow the wheels on the same axle to move vertically without affecting other wheel. Actually, it's on the same axle, but somehow it's not connected. So this is all about the independent suspension system, and this is the what is this is what and basic categories of suspension system. The detailed category of different suspension system will be explained in the next video.